So in today's video we're going to be talking about the incredible transformation that has happened at Wrexham Football Club over the past few decades. Before we get started in today's video, if you are looking for all the best Wrexham AFC content on YouTube, matchday vlogs, match reactions, news from the club, anything related to Wrexham will happen on this channel, so make sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 14,000 subscribers and let's try and hit 350 likes on today's video. Also as well, if my voice sounds funny, it still hasn't fully recovered from the Aldershot game last Saturday when we won 4-3, so you'll just have to bear with it. In 2002, former solicitor from Manchester Alex Hamilton took control of Wrexham Football Club, but 2 years later the club would be put into uncontrollable debt and faced liquidation. For example, Mr Hamilton agreed to sell the Racecourse Ground land to B&Q for £8 million. He then stated that the £8 million would go into building a new stadium for Wrexham Football Club and putting in the rest of the money into the club, but as you can imagine, that was never going to happen. Fans believed that he wanted to close the club and walk away with the profits of selling the land, and he saw Wrexham as a property deal and not taking over a football club. Alex Hamilton also stated further on that year that Wrexham would only survive if they sold the Racecourse Ground, which was clearly a lie, and for any new fans that are following Wrexham FC, you can see how badly we were run and how bad times really were. And on our first game of the 2004-05 season, Wrexham fans planned a 2,000 man march to protest against Alex Hamilton and to try and get the rights of the Racecourse Ground into the WST. And Alex Hamilton, the owner at the time, responded by standing on the Kop where 5,000 other Wrexham fans were standing. Bearing in mind this is the same week that he had called the Wrexham fans low-life scum, and this was in the middle of the situation where he said the only way the club would survive was if they've sold the Racecourse Ground, and he was threatening to close the club. So it was a bit of a strange one when Wrexham fans were starting to hear the whispers that Alex Hamilton was stood on the Kop. And it was clear to the fans that he had done this to try and provoke trouble and try and get hit in the away end to give Wrexham a bad reputation, but of course that didn't happen. Wrexham fans were obviously angry, but just laughing at him when they saw him on the Kop because of how silly and how stupid his actions were. And then if we fast forward to November 2004, where the club officially went into administration, a tax bill of nearly £900,000 was owed after a winding up order was placed on the club. Wrexham were also deducted 10 points by the Football League when we were sat in League One. Hamilton refused to pay off the debt, but luckily a while later Hamilton and Gutterman were sort of his partner amongst all of this whilst it was going on, and for a large chunk of time Wrexham fans believed that Gutterman was the owner of the club because Hamilton was hiding behind Gutterman's name of the company, and then it was soon revealed that Hamilton was the owner, so it was an absolute shambles. But these two did have a falling out, meaning that their intention to sell off the assets and make potential profit off the assets was disclosed. After court battles by administrators Williams, Traynor and Ackland, the club was officially sold to a consortium led by Neville Dickens. It was described by the fans as a monumentous day, and to this day we've not heard, seen, or just nothing's been said about Gutterman and Hamilton. So to conclude on everything, it was clear that Hamilton and Gutterman had arrived into Wrexham Football Club to use the club as a property deal. We understand that their only intentions were ever to sell the Racecourse Ground, make the profit, sell the land on someone else, and then it would leave the club in a really sticky situation. It might have led to liquidation and potentially the club going bust, but luckily we were safe. But like we said, Hamilton's only intentions were to ever make the profits off the land and not care a little bit in the world about the club. But the bad days at Wrexham FC were not over yet. In 2011, our troubles had resumed on 7 years later from the Hamilton and Gutterman situation. This time we were put in a more stressful situation, a more situation that had to be resolved really quickly. And yes, we had 24 hours to raise enough money to ensure the club could play in the 2011-12 conference, and if enough money wasn't raised, we'd potentially be kicked out of the league and might not even have a club. Wrexham had to meet 4 conditions to raise the £250,000 to ensure their status in the conference in the 11-12 year. The most important condition being that they obviously had to raise the £250,000, and the other guaranteeing that they had to have a home for the club in the upcoming season. Luckily enough, the club did sell the Racecourse Ground and Colliers Park, our training ground, to the Glyndŵr University, so that was one of our problems solved, which then led to 3 out of the 4 problems being resolved. And then obviously the last one was the biggest of them all. We had to raise £250,000 to ensure that we could stay in the league. Co-owner Jeff Moss had put £150,000 before the 5 PM deadline in, meaning that another £100,000 had to be found from somewhere. So the attention did turn to the fans, and the fans were sort of our last hope. We had 24 hours to save the club, and we obviously had the possibility of a 24-hour extension given by the league. But remarkably, the club raised a whopping £127,000 in just one day to ensure the club could stay in the conference. You had children giving their pocket money, every last penny they had, to adults giving their life savings away to save Wrexham FC. That sentence alone says a lot about the club. So from thinking that we were competing in the 2011-12 Blue Square Conference League, it then went to the club having to raise £100,000 in 24 hours. And remarkably, like we've touched on, the club did that. And incredible. We have got an incredible fan base. Wrexham FC fans who raised the money should be incredibly proud, and who knows, if that £100,000 wasn't raised, we might not be sitting in this position today. So that was 2 occasions where the club could have potentially gone under, and twice the club was saved in the matter of 7 years as well. It just shows that the ride of being a Wrexham fan was never easy. And then we fast forward to 2021, and the unthinkable has happened. Well, the unthinkable back then in 2011 has happened. We are now owned by 2 Hollywood A-listers, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, who have a combined net worth of $230 million. And a sentence that Wrexham fans wouldn't have imagined of hearing 7 years ago was that the owners have visions of taking Wrexham Football Club all the way up to the Premier League. Just 17 years on from the club being that close away from going bust. Since the pair took over in February 2021, this is what they have achieved in 744 days. They've had the green light to build a new 5,500 seat Kop. They've gained sponsors such as TikTok, Expedia and Vistaprint. They've averaged 10,000 fans in the racecourse for nearly every game this season. We've gained 10 times the following on social media. They've created an 18-episode documentary called Welcome to Wrexham, which has been seen by nearly people in every country across the world. They've seen us beat Championship side Coventry and go toe-to-toe with one of the best Championship teams this season, Sheffield United. They're the first non-league team to be added on FIFA. They've had a trip to Wembley in the FA Trophy final. They've created a huge worldwide fan base with demands for shirts being incredibly high. Live coverage of our FA Cup games has been on ESPN this year, one of the biggest streaming platforms in the world. They've turned the women's team into a semi-professional team, and the most important one is they've given us hope and the reason to believe again. Wrexham were a sleeping giant. Obviously, we've been in the higher leagues before. We've competed in the likes of Division 2, Division 3, the Championship and League 1 now it's called. We've played in the big European competitions, we have the history, we've had the fan base, but we just needed that extra bit of boost, the extra financial boost to get us back to where we used to be, to make this club great again and to help the club succeed and rise. And this is now happening thanks to Rob and Ryan. Just to put it into perspective, obviously Wrexham needed £100,000 to survive in 2011. If we come and fast forward to the current day in 2023, that would be raised in just 15 minutes of content in the Welcome to Wrexham documentary, as it raked in £400,000 per episode. And it just shows that hard work does pay off, and all those hard working fans that gave every last penny into the club have been rewarded with this incredible takeover at Wrexham Football Club. And like I said, it is the best reward possible to us loyal fans who've been watching the club through thick and thin. You know, before the takeover happened in the 2019-20 season, this is just 3 seasons ago. We survived by 0.33 points. We were at the lowest the club had been in years. There was no motivation, there was no drive to go and do well. I remember the days of when we were watching us at home to Aldershot, at home to Dover, and the amount of empty seats that would be around us, and seeing the team lose week in, week out that season, to now seeing the Racecourse Ground full and to see us winning most weeks and putting in some really good performances. You know, it is incredible, and I've said it many times before, I would have never believed you if you'd have told me that we'd have been taken over by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. In 12 days, it would have been 3 years that we played our last game before the lockdown and the last game before this journey took off. I'll overlay pictures on screen as well from my day there. You know, it was gloomy, there was nothing to be happy about, it was a 0-0 draw, and to think that 3 years on we'd be in this position, it's just incredible to me, and I cannot stop smiling about it. So I hope this video has told you that Wrexham have really been through it all in 2004 under Hamilton, in 2011 having to raise a 6-figure fee to stay in the league, to now having a multi-million-pound takeover, buying the luxury players in this league and having the luxury team. You know, I think it's thoroughly deserved, and it just does show that hard work does pay off. And I'm not coming on here saying, oh, we've had it really bad the entire history of the club. We haven't, and I'll sit here and say we haven't. You know, we've been in European competitions, we've competed in Division 2, Division 3. But what I'm saying is, in the recent times that we have been a football club, 2000 plus to the current day, it's definitely not been an easy ride, and we're so grateful for this takeover. And let's hope that we have many more memorable years ahead under Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, and hopefully will see us rise up the leagues. So to conclude this video, all I want to say is thank you ever so much to Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. This journey couldn't be possible without you, and like I said, let's hope for many more memorable years ahead up the town.